May the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be always acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Good morning.
Good morning.
There are 4 shopping days until Christmas. Are you ready for Christmas? Perhaps there's one more gift to buy, or to wrap, or to ship. Do you have meal plans? Groceries to buy, meals to cook, cookies to bake, corners of the house to clean and tidy before friends or family arrive? Here at the church, are there decorations to mount? Perhaps missing creche figures to find? Silver to polish? And last-minute cleaning and sprucing up? Maybe the ushers are thinking about how they're going to greet our visitors on Christmas Eve and make them feel welcome. I'm sure the choir is rehearsing diligently to bless and inspire us. I happen to notice in the office that the bulletins are already printed, so that's one less thing on Dominic's list. The Altar Guild is probably working hard to make sure all is ready for services. And Dominic may be writing or rewriting his Christmas sermon. In this moment, I have not found inspiration or guidance from my usual sources, Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. Instead, I turn to Diana, Flo, and Mary, collectively known as the Supremes. And judging by the vintage of this congregation, most of you probably remember them singing, "Stop in the name of love." Stop in the name of love. And permit me to reframe the question. Are you ready for the feast of the Incarnation? Consider writer Loretta Ross Gatta's challenge. Imagine a Christmas service where the worshippers come in their holiday finery to find a sanctuary empty of all glittering decorations, silent of holiday carols. What if this year you canceled the church decoration committee and the worship committee and called off the extra choir rehearsals in the church school pageant? What if on Christmas Eve, people came and sat in dim pews, and someone stood up and said, "Something happened here while we were out at the malls, while we were baking cookies and fretting about whether we bought the right gift. Christ was here. God is here." We wouldn't need the glorious choruses and the harp and the bell choir and the organ. We wouldn't need the trees strung with lights. We wouldn't have to deny the dissonance between the promise and hope of Christmas and the world racked with sin and evil. There wouldn't be that embarrassing conflict over the historical truth of the birth stories and whether or not Mary was really a virgin. What if instead of doing something, we were to be something? To be a womb, to be a dwelling for God. 'Tis the season when we can be short-tempered, unfocused, anxious, or unhappy because we've always done it that way, or that idea breaks with tradition, or we so want Christmas to be perfect. So let me quote from another one of my 1960s icons, Leonard Bernstein's West Side Story. After the devastating gang fight where their leader was killed, the Jets gather, and one of the older members cautions his friends. Play it cool, boy, real cool. In other words, regain your equilibrium. Center yourself. Refocus. Be alert. Prepare for what is to come. I think that sounds like good advice for people in relationship with a God so full of surprises and outrageous propositions like the Incarnation, God made flesh. So in the days to come, join me in reflecting on the meaning of the Incarnation, God becoming flesh. Emmanuel, God with us. To be clear, I'm not urging you to develop a sound theological statement on the Incarnation. Rather, what does the Incarnation mean to you, to a people living in a world torn apart by war, violence in many forms, people degrading people, people exploiting people, where people suffer for the color of their skin, where people suffer and die unnecessarily of starvation and disease? What meaning is there to the Incarnation in the midst of a deep family crisis or catastrophic medical diagnosis? Does the Incarnation matter in the ordinary, mundane times of life? What does it matter that God came to us in the form of a helpless and vulnerable baby born in a backwater part of the Roman Empire to poor peasant parents? Shusaku Endo was a Japanese journalist who wanted to explain Christianity to Japanese people. In his book, Silence, Endo explains the Incarnation through the story of the Portuguese missionary Sebastian Rodrigues. Rodrigues was smuggled into Japan during the worst years of government persecution of Christians. It is also the story of ordinary Japanese Christians who remain faithful in the face of persecution, torture, and death. From a hiding place, Rodrigues sees the martyrdom of many faithful Christians. In his reports to Rome, Rodrigues reflects his growing disquietude. How can God be silent in the face of painful suffering and death of these most faithful disciples? Rodrigues is captured, tortured, and forced to publicly renounce his faith to avoid execution. But even then, he is constantly troubled by the perception of God's silence. At the end of the book, Rodrigues comes to understand that God has not been absent, but rather that God has been suffering with him and with the persecuted community of faith. It is only at the end of the story that Rodrigues is able to hear God say, "I understand your pain and your suffering. It is for that reason that I am here. I was not silent. I suffered beside you." Only then did Rodrigues know the full embrace of the God who knows us, who is us, who forgives, who heals, who reconciles us, and who loves us to the end. You may or may not have noticed this line of thought as you've sung two hymn verses The first is in one of my favorite hymns, number 469. The tune, St. Helena, was written by my good friend Calvin Hampton. The second verse reads, "There's no place where earth's sorrows are more felt than up in heaven. There is no place where earth's failings have such kindly judgment given. There is plenteous redemption in the blood that has been shed. There is joy for all the members in the sorrows of the head." And we often sing hymn number 102 at Christmas time. The fourth verse reads, "For he is our lifelong pattern. Daily, when on earth he grew, he was tempted, scorned, rejected. Tears and smiles like us he knew. Thus he feels for all our sadness and shares in all our gladness." In the midst of the realities of war, of pervasive violence, degradation, exploitation, and injustice, with all that preoccupies and distracts us during this season, it is difficult to discern signs of God being with us, of Emmanuel. If we are consumed by all the Christmas noise and all that clamors for our attention and focus, the full meaning and spiritual depth of the Feast of the Incarnation may elude us. So, stop in the name of love, stop doing, and start being. Play it cool, boy, real cool, and allow yourself to be awed once again by God's loving gift of his only Son. In the words of another familiar hymn, ponder anew what the Almighty can do. In the days ahead, set aside quiet time to contemplate the meaning of the Incarnation, of Emmanuel for yourself. What does it mean to have God and Christ in your life? When and or where do you discern God at work in your life or in the world around us? As Ross Gada challenged us to see, Christ is here. God is here. All around us and within us. Be joyful and celebrate. I believe God's love calls us to respond in love, to be God's agents in a suffering world so much in need of our witness. May the Feast of the Incarnation awaken in us a commitment to reflect the truths and power of the gospel. And may we find ways individually and as a community to proclaim in word and deed, Emmanuel, to a broken, unbelieving, and cynical world. Amen.